Today, I want to talk about the second biggest difference between your account and other people's accounts. Hello everybody, I'm Roadblock and this is a Raid Shadow Legends video. So today I want to talk about gear. I believe gear is the second major difference between your account and another player's account, and I really wanted to talk about that. The number one difference being your champions, right? But something that can happen, and it can happen often, especially if you play the game a lot and you play live arena, you're going to encounter and you're going to have these experiences where you may have a pretty strong roster, but you run into situations where you are just not as well prepared for your opponent, right? And you may be wondering, like, I don't understand. I have such a strong roster. How did I not beat this guy? And it comes down to gear. I've beaten full teams of mythicals before, right? Where they, I had a really hard choice. I'm like, I'm going to get cooked. This guy's, a huge whale, a huge kraken. And they're super slow. They're super squishy. They don't have stone skin. They don't have this. They don't have that, and it's just like, oh, okay, wow, that was really easy. That guy doesn't know what he's doing. And we've run into it too. In my clan, we've had a few players that were very, very stacked accounts, but didn't know how to properly manage them. And we've did what we could to try and help. I think ultimately we went our separate ways, but yeah, it's not the easiest thing in the world to really understand how to properly gear your champions, and I kind of wanted to touch on that today. Listen up, I just got a new promo link that you can use to follow along with me on my latest free-to-play adventure and get a free Elenaril as well as 3 more powerful epics as you level up. Here's how to do it. Log out of Play and Play and uninstall. Click the link in the description and register with a brand new email. Launch Raid and complete the tutorial. Go to your inbox and claim your first champ. Don't miss out on your chance to get Elenaril right after signing up, as well as Fayne, Uugo, and Tagoar as you progress through Raid. Click on my link right now and let's crush this together, because it is a big difference. Now, you may see in videos all the time where somebody makes a video about this champion and says, this champion is the best Hydra damage dealer in the game. You must build this champion right now. And then you go and you build that champion and you find out, well, I don't understand. His champion hit for 2 million a hit and my champion is only hitting for 700k. I don't understand what's going on. Now, there are going to be 2 main differences. One of them is going to be blessings. Blessings are a big deal. Harima with the 6-star blessing is actually taken over as one of my wave clear champions now. And I just did this. In fact, I had to cancel a recording because I got off on a tangent building this because I want her to be in stone skin. So despite the fact that I have the blessing and despite the fact that I have a well-developed account, my Harima still isn't quite as strong as others, and one big reason because she doesn't have any stone skin. And in today's meta, especially with the Calvalax team out there, where Calvalax can just basically one-shot your whole team with poisons and Arachne Elixir, stone skin is very, very, I don't want to say essential, but it's a little bit higher in value, at least for me, at least in the meta where I'm playing and I don't have any way to really counter a Calvalax Arachne Elixir team. Stone skin is my best defense against that. And so Harima is a big part of that. And I just got this ring recently and I was managed to upgrade it. I had really bad rolls on it, but it did still give me more overall defense than the previous ring that she was using, which I think would have been this one right here. And that's because of the 3 set bonus for stone skin. So now I just need to find a good stone skin chest or a good stone skin crit damage amulet. But like I said, I went on that tangent the first time I recorded this video. I'm not going to go down that avenue again, but there are always going to be areas that you can improve your gear, but it is going to be the thing that sets you apart. So if you were to put my 6-star Harima against, let's say like, I don't know if they have one, but let's say some of my other friends in the community, like Zero Brew or PJ, right? If we were to put them against each other, just a one-on-one, I probably lose every time because they have a much more developed gear than what I have on my account. And this is just something that kind of takes time, but is very important to understand the differences and understand what you're looking for when it comes to gear, because this is like one of the biggest like pitfalls that I see players when I go to do takeovers. And I know I get this question a lot, so I want to like preempt this because I am referencing takeovers that I used to do. I haven't done a takeover all summer. My son comes and stays with me for the summer. I just took him home yesterday. I drove for 12 hours. I drove 6 there and 6 back, you know, and now that he's gone, I might have a little bit more time, but don't get your hopes up for me to come back to streaming or come back to takeovers. I am actually looking for a full-time job because I just can't afford our lifestyle, you know, at the money that I'm currently making in content creation. Content's not going to stop, but people always ask me, hey, do you do takeovers? Even paid takeovers. I've never done paid takeovers. I've never seen value. You know, I feel too guilty about taking somebody's money to give them a takeover. I feel like, you know, if I don't give them a good service or whatever, that it, you know, that's a personal thing. I don't have any problems with paid takeovers. It's just not something that I'm comfortable doing because I don't want somebody to get a takeover from me and then be like, that was a waste of my money. And so with that tangent aside, I just want to say that when I do takeovers, and I do some for my clan every now and then still, I will see a lot of gear issues being the problem. And so I kind of wanted to give you a brief rundown of what you're looking to do when it comes to gearing your champions. And I'm preempting this because I know Cheap Vodka is already typing a comment. Love you, dude. I really do, by the way. Like I consider him a friend for sure. But these are going to be generalizations. And I know that I've talked about like generalizations are not always something that you want to kind of get into. But if you use these as a baseline, then you can start to evolve off of this advice, right? And so we'll use Harima since I have her up here to kind of give you a rundown. So Harima is a defense-based nuker. If you're not familiar with her, it is important to kind of establish what type of champion that you're working with when it comes to gearing. So you might have a support, you might have a nuker, you might have a debuffer. These are all going to require different builds and different desired effects, right? So for Harima, I want damage. Now, I almost always recommend speed boots, and I want to be clear about that. There is a point in time where your account is going to be so far developed that you can get away with defense % boots and find your speed on every other piece that you've collected over a long period of time. I've been playing this game since Deliana was the login champion. I'm not there yet. So I'm not saying that you're not, but it's not something that's going to happen overnight. I still like running speed boots on my champions. Really the best way to kind of figure out how, you know, are you going too fast and you need more damage is just to gauge kind of how your fights are going, right? If your Harima is going third every time, like you're winning the speed battles every time with whatever support or booster or whatever your team comp is, maybe you can afford to slow down your Harima a little bit. But if you're still kind of like struggling in those speed areas, you want to make sure that your Harima is going to be able to keep up. I run speed boots and I'm not really in a position, I feel like, yet to avoid that. I do think you're probably going to have an easier time getting away from speed boots on your PvE nukers, ones that are very specifically used for PvE, because you might be able to run them at a little bit slower speed and make up for that fact with a lot of turn meter boosting and different effects. Just something to keep in mind. But for me, speed boots is pretty much all that I run, with a few exceptions. For the chest piece, you want to make sure you go with percentage gear. Now, in the early game, you can get away with flat stat gear on certain champions because their stat levels are so low that the percentages may actually be less than what the flat stat gear would give you in some cases. But for the most part, percentage gear is going to be the best, with the best enchant being also percentage damage. When it comes to substats, something that I think people often forget too is that epic gear gets 3 rolls in substats. So you can see I've got 2 into crit rate, 1 in defense. Your legendary gear gets 4, And your mythicals get 5 in the form of the red item gets what I call a pre-roll. There's probably another name for it. I've just started calling it pre-roll because that to me is what it is. And that only happens on mythical gears. And then for blue pieces, you get 2. For green pieces, you get 1. And for gray pieces, you get 0, right? And that's how substats work. So you get 3 rolls to increase your substats, and those happen, or 4 on a legendary piece, and those will happen at your 4, 8, 12, and 16 intervals. So a little note there for those of you that haven't quite figured that part out yet, because I still see that all the time. But really what you're going to look for when it comes to your chest is your main stat in a percentage, and then whatever substats you want. So for me, what I would love to have would be speed, crit rate, crit damage, and then maybe whatever other, maybe flat defense, maybe accuracy, maybe, you know, something within that realm, depending on what you're trying to go with. So this piece I enjoy a lot because it has a ton of crit rate, which allows me to get away with crit damage gloves. Now this is what you're going to want to do for your nukers, but it's very important to understand this is not an early game build. You are going to run crit rate gloves for a long time in the early game because you need to hit 100% crit rate, and that's going to be hard to do when you're not getting big rolls for crit rate, like for example 22% crit rate on this chest. So it is something that you're going to work towards, but pay attention to the gear that you're getting and keep it in the back of your mind when you're gearing out your champions, because you will at some point realize like, wait, I'm still rocking crit rate. Should I have switched to crit damage? And you look and it's like you've got a ton of different crit damage gloves that could have taken over and you could still meet those crit rate requirements. And it happens pretty early in the game too. I was able to get crit damage gloves going on my free-to-play accounts pretty early within the first couple months. So crit damage gloves is what I do recommend. There are certain circumstances for crit rate gloves, which we'll talk about in a second, depending on champions and other examples. But again, you're looking for the best is crit damage with crit rate in the substat, because it's going to help you make up the difference because you're losing, you know, a massive amount of crit rate once you take those gloves off. So finding some of the substats helps you have to avoid it in some of the other areas. For example, this shield does not have crit rate, and I get away with that a little bit because I've got crit rate down here. So yeah, crit damage is what I recommend for your damage dealers. For your supports and your debuffers, HP, defense percent, stuff to keep them alive. You're not really going to be looking for anything else in the form of gloves. And we didn't talk about your non-damage dealers here, but for your supports and your debuffers, same thing. You're going to want HP percent, defense percent, stuff to keep them alive, right? Or accuracy or resistance for the chest is a possibility. I would say that you just want to be mindful that they can handle an accuracy chest and not lose too much HP and become super squishy, but those are options that you can have. So when it comes to the top 3, that is the bottom 3, and the bottom 3 are frustrating because they can roll a lot of different stuff. So they can roll flat attack, flat defense, flat HP on all 3 of these bottom 3. Now the top 3, weapons can only roll flat attack, helmets can only roll flat HP, and shields can only roll flat defense, which makes them pretty easy, right? Because you know exactly what you're going to get. Now you can get defense in the form of an ascension bonus on them, which is, as you can see, what I did on my Harima, which is very good. And then in the substats, you're going to look for that same stuff that you want. So for me, I'm looking for speed, I'm looking for crit rate, crit damage. The only thing that would be better would be a defense percentage right here to increase the damage output on my Harima. Here again, we've got speed, crit rate, crit damage, and I would want that defense percentage. When it comes to your supports, you're going to want speed, of course, and then you might want defense percent, HP percent, resistance, maybe accuracy. That would be more for your debuffers, and that's really what I'm looking for when it comes to these. So these pieces are almost always kept if you can. Obviously, if you get some with bad substats, then you're going to make those decisions as they come along, but this is kind of generally what you're looking for when it comes to your gear. When it comes to your accessories, main stat generally is going to be what you want. on your ring. However, if it's a support, you're going to want HP percent or defense percent, or sorry, HP or a defense ring with that substat in the bottom if possible, and that will help you out a little bit. But at the same time, with them, with the support in particular, in a protection set, you might want to run a ring that doesn't necessarily pertain to what that they are trying to do. So you might find yourself running an attack ring instead of an HP ring because you're looking to complete the 9-piece bonus. So I don't have any examples. I think one of my champions is maybe running like an attack amulet or something like that, just to complete like protection set, because the protection set is so good, especially in today's kind of boss meta. So that's something that you might be looking for. But when it comes to your amulet, defense or HP for supports and debuffers, and then you're going to want crit damage for your nuker. This is almost always going to be crit damage for your nukers, and you would only use flat stat of their main stat while you wait for a crit damage amulet, because it's just so darn good, and the amount of defense that you get out of a flat statted amulet isn't a lot. So you can't quite see it because it's behind my head. Let me see if I could just move myself. So this flat stat amulet, which I'm keeping for the accuracy that's on it, is only 170. If I take it up to 16, it goes up to 265 versus what I'm getting out of the crit damage, which is a huge chunk. What's that, 52%? So yeah, you want to make sure that you're going crit damage when it's necessary for your new, actually not when, it's always for your nukers. In reality, I don't know that I would ever use an attack amulet unless it's a bomb champion or to complete a set, like a 9-piece set. For your banner, you're going to be looking for speed on these if possible. That's a big thing, that you can roll speed as a substat on these, and you're going to want to find speed there. I would keep anything with speed regardless of what the main stat is. For the nuker, you're going to want their primary stat. So for my Harima, I've got defense. For an attack-based nuker, I would go with attack here. However, in some cases, for champions that need to land debuffs as a big part of their kit, you might want to go with accuracy. So despite the fact that Thor, this is my Thor build, is a nuker, I need him to have enough accuracy to land his decreased speed, because I use him as a decreased speed champion, and therefore I have him in crit damage feral and a feral amulet with accuracy and speed, because it does give me that big boost to my accuracy. Now 345 is not much. I don't care if he lands this in PvP. I need him to land it in Hydra specifically, and at the level that he's doing on Hydra, it's more than enough. I'm able to hit. So that's plenty of accuracy for me. I use him in Hydra and Fire Knight. So 2 areas, and I need that accuracy banner in order to achieve that. I would love to roll attack or accuracy on it, but unfortunately I haven't done so yet. As the Ascension slot, by the way, is what I meant. For your debuffers, obviously, you're also going to want accuracy. For your supports, though, you can really get away with resistance here if you have it. I'm pretty bad about keeping a lot of my resistance banners, but if you can find a resistance banner, or if you have a resistance banner, that can be really good for your supports, especially with a speed roll and a high speed roll. Does this mean get rid of every banner that doesn't have speed? No. At the stage on my account, I'm going to get rid of a banner if it doesn't have speed. But for my free-to-play, if it's got accuracy, I'm keeping it. If it's got, my main stats, I'm keeping it. So it really, banner is where you really want speed, but in the early days of building an account, you take what you can get, right? And, just understand that that's what you're going to be working towards. So that's kind of a general overview of gear, what you're looking for, how you're looking to build your champions. So Fushan was part of a speed tune, and his speed requirement was actually pretty low relative to what I could achieve on my account. So I had him in attack percent boots to increase his damage per clan boss, because he was in a clan boss speed tune, right? So that's one example of where you might, use percentage boots. The rest are just not champions that I would use a bunch, or champions that I want to be super slow. Ultimate Death Knight right here, and Mortu Macabre. Now this build is actually quite a bit outdated. Nobody really runs builds like this at the level of my account, so Mortu Macabre sits on the bench more often than not. But the concept here for this Mortu was that he would get a bunch of perils by going slow and taking a bunch of hits with Stone Skin. So I put him in HP percent boost. He's an HP based damage dealer, and he's very, very slow at 104 speed. Now that is really not the meta these days. There's so many ways to remove Stone Skin. Even though it's a low percentage, it can still happen a lot. And so I don't really run that team anymore, but those are just, you know, relics of a different time. So, but yeah, overall, I feel like I've touched on everything I wanted to touch on in this video. Just kind of a general guide to gearing. Now, there are more advanced guides, there are more simple guides, right? This is just kind of a general overview of what you're kind of looking at, but I'd be happy to dive into more deep stuff, but I really need your guys' help in the comments. I think I started a series a while back where I was going over individual sets, and I kind of got away from that video because I don't think it did particularly well. So let me know in the comments if you guys want to hear about gear, if you want me to continue talking about this subject, or if you want just to say, yeah, I don't really care about this. You know, let me know in the comments and be like, hey, I love your content, but this video didn't really interest me, and I will take that to heart, right? And we will move in a different direction and try and find something that really resonates with you guys a little bit better. But I just want to say, either way, thank you for watching all the way through to the video up to this point. If you enjoy my content, please consider subscribing. It is the best way to support my channel, and I look forward to seeing all of you in the next video. Take care.